When writing the essay for the ACT exam, there are a few things to keep in mind in regard to sentence structure, word choice, and grammar that are sure to boost your score. To get the highest score possible on the ACT writing exam, you're going to have to make sure that you have varying sentence structures, correct grammar, and proper word choice. So let's review some of the skills that you might need in there. We'll start out with sentence structure. First of all, there are 4 different types of sentences. All right, just as a review, going back into your language arts history, you want to practice writing those 4 types on any given subject. So let me take a moment, review the 4 different types of sentences with you, how they can be developed within the same topic, and then that should make more sense if you keep that in mind after you've written your essay and you're practicing writing essays, that you do have all the different types of sentence structures. The first one you're very familiar with, which is a simple sentence. This is a sentence that has a subject and a verb. For example, the sentence, we use a bell schedule. You have your subject, we, you have your verb, use, all right, and then a bell schedule. So, very simple, short, concise. Not that you can't have shorter sentences that are different than a simple sentence. I'll cover that though. The next type of sentence structure is called a compound sentence. Now this one has 2 independent clauses joined with a conjunction. So going back to that bell schedule, the bell schedule is used in our school and it has worked well for years. Now we have a compound sentence because we've joined 2 independent clauses by a comma and the conjunction and. Putting those 2 together, as far as varying your sentence structures, so you have the shorter, just simple sentence moving into compound sentences, and then there's 2 other types. The next one is a complex sentence. Complex sentences have an independent clause and a dependent clause. The bell schedule is what we use to run our days, unless it's the weekends. Now, unless it's the weekend, cannot stand by itself. That's why we call it a dependent clause. The bell schedule is what we use to run our days, can be a complete sentence, and that is the independent clause. But varying it, mixing your phrases together is a good way to go to make sure that you have varying sentence structures. Last one, compound complex sentence. In this, you have 2 independent clauses as well as a dependent clause. It reads, we use bells to indicate when to change classes, and as much as it annoys us, it is the most effective way to run a school. So we have an independent clause with we use bell schedules to indicate when to change classes, and we also have an independent clause here with it is the most effective way to run a school. Those could be separated, but we have this phrase in between, and as much as it annoys us, which is the dependent clause and cannot stand alone. So make sure that you're varying your sentence structures. Take a sentence, play around with it, put it down 4 ways. Just practice that a little bit so that when you are taking the writing test, you make sure you vary your sentence structures. Let's talk a little bit more now about word choice. The thing about word choice is you have to keep in mind who your audience is. This essay should be in a formal tone. It's written for an educator who rates essays. Also with word choice, it's always a good idea to avoid personal pronouns. They can easily be taken out. First of all, when you use the word I, as in, I think or I believe, it's understood. You're the one that's writing the essay. You're the one that's proving it. It might make your essay look a little bit longer, but it also loses its academic appeal. And then using the word you must be careful with that. Statements like as you see or as you can tell. Not necessarily. If they disagree with you and you're putting them into the essay, that's called being the accusative, all right, it might take offense to it. So it's always a good idea to avoid using those personal pronouns in your writing. Now, use some impressive vocabulary, but don't overdo it. Be sure you know the definition. Right? You might have a bunch of long words in your mind, but not be sure exactly when is the proper time to use them. If you don't know, don't put it in. All right? You lose credibility if you use a word incorrectly. And you don't want to overdo it to the point where it's very flowery and overdone. So what you would want to do is use some nice long vocabulary words that stretch you a little bit, but just don't overdo it. Other thing, finally, words like really, very, and like, we say that sometimes when we're talking, but don't write the way you speak. Keep it more formal. All of those extra words, cross them out, erase them, get them out of your mind, and know ahead of time as you're practicing, you're going to avoid them. Now, as far as grammar and spelling goes, write in the active tense. Avoid helping verbs. As things happen, be aggressive with it. It is this way. The more helping verbs that you put in there, the less authority your writing has, and you're trying to persuade somebody. A mistake or two won't be penalized, but more than a few will decrease your score. So be careful about that as you're doing your proofreading, and write with parallelism in mind, matching person, place, and number when you're talking about pronouns, subject-verb agreement. We spend so much time on that when we're reviewing for the English section. Those skills, and everyone who's taken the writing section should have taken the English section and studied for that. Make sure they transfer over as you're evaluating your own writing. Keep these thoughts in mind when practicing your essay writing while preparing for the ACT writing exam, and they will become second nature and are sure to help you achieve the highest score you can on the exam.